Hello, everybody. I'm Roger Evans, and a co-founder of the Institute of Psychosynthesis in London with my wife, Joan. And I am having a conversation today with a dear friend and colleague who lives a long way away from me. I'm in London, and she's in Amherst, in the States. So I'd like to welcome Didi, and wonderful to do this with you, Didi. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm glad that we're doing this.
Well, we've only been at it a couple of years, haven't we? Didi
I
just,
think together we make up a century.
we do indeed. My God, that's ridiculous. So one of the things, what we thought we'd do is a conversation between two people who've been doing psychosynthesis, practicing, training psychotherapists, training people in psychosynthesis psychology for a long time. And we thought it might be useful as a reflection on not only the current situation for psychosynthesis, but also looking forward about the need for psychosynthesis and the value of psychosynthesis today. And maybe you can kick that off. What do you think about the role, Didi, of psychosynthesis in society today and over the next few years?
Well, in an ideal world, we would have it be, whether named psychosynthesis or not, have its principles be embedded in our lives, in our education, etc. So again, between whether it's called psychosynthesis or whether the principles that Assagioli so articulately put into the world, the exercises, the practice, the core values, the global responsibility inherent in his work, and the way we've carried it forward, I think it's hugely important.
Yeah.
And hope that we can embed it more and more, especially in times that are so difficult.
Well, I think that's the point, isn't it? I think, we're in some ways we're called to do that, given the difficulty. And I'm not just talking about local difficulties in the US or in the UK, but global difficulties. And where that the focus is on very powerful leadership and, dare I say it, extreme narcissism. And part of what I see where psychosynthesis really adds, and as you say, those core principles, we call it a psychospiritual psychology. And embedded in that psychology, I remember talking to Roberto about this when we met him first thing. It's not just about the psychology of hope, but it's psychology of love. And in that psychology of love, what is so critical is about not just the individual, but the whole. And how do we help people reflect on, think on? And I'm with you. I think in some ways, the time is now for a really important step for a psychology I believe has been quite hidden over many years to take its rightful place. And I don't want to overstate that. You see what I'm saying, Didi?
Yes, it has been hidden, and it's the United States is particularly tight in its acceptance of anything expansive in the field of psychology because we have insurance companies behind the field and psychopharmaceutical companies behind the fields. So psychosynthesis as any transpersonal psychology or spiritually oriented psychology or nature oriented or psychedelic psychology, all of those things
Exactly.
are hopefully finding their place, but they're not going to fit into the system. And yay for that, because the system needs to change.
Exactly. I mean, we've been very fortunate here in the UK. We've had and we're more than fortunate actually, because when we began in 73, counseling wasn't heard of. Psychotherapy was limited to a very narrow band of psychoanalysis. Now, what's very interesting is we were fortunate because we were part of helping create some of those counseling formations and counseling organizations, but also Joan was part of, with a small group, creating the United Kingdom for Council for Psychotherapy. Now, why that's so significant, it's a broad church and it doesn't depend on specific medical degrees, clinical psychological degrees, etc. So that broad church, we've been very fortunate to live in that context. And so I
I
think that you see what I mean?
I do, and I agree. That would be the hope, that this broad context could find its place everywhere. It's why it has such a big appeal in the United States in the realm of coaching, because
Exactly.
coaching is not a licensed field, and it allows us to do psychosynthesis without having to play by the rules of some of these systems.
It's very powerful what you're saying, you see, because let me just step back for a minute if that's okay, because I want to talk about coaching, and particularly in the US. The interesting thing is we, as I said, we use the word spiritual when we talk about psychosynthesis as a psychospiritual context, because one of the things I'd be interested to hear what you think in terms of the whole notion of the world of spirituality, and how that has evolved and where it is today. Because 50 years ago, people didn't talk about those. There was some strange people that in spiritualist movements. Today, that's been reframed dramatically. And I'm interested in what you see, where that places spirituality or how it's placed in the US at the moment.
Well, it is a changed dynamic, though. In the United States 50 years ago, there were enough of us who were hippies that spirituality was, close to our hearts, whether all of
I
us
know.
having rejected whatever churches we may have come from. And at the same time, the Eastern spiritual traditions were coming in, sometimes
Exactly.
for better, sometimes for worse in the United States. But we did have to separate ourselves from the culture. My hope is that spirituality now, that people even understand the word, that they get it now. And I believe this is true. They get it as being different than religion.
Both different and religion and very close in many respects, what we're seeing to science and the whole debate between science, quantum theory and spirituality is so alive today.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we're seeing. And so many writers today are making that connection and also with the natural world. And so I'm very encouraged, I have to say. Um,
I agree. And once we have continued to embed the idea of spirituality and then psychospirituality, so
exactly.
that we are held in not just spiritual, the old, problem of trying to climb the
Exactly.
ladder of hierarchy out of our personalities into
Something
some
else.
variation of heaven. Once we
Well,
get it down here, embodied and lived in our personality, then spirituality can actually be us.
and it's real. And it's how we live our lives, right? And that's what fascinates me. I mean, I'm fascinated two old hippies talking to one another. I don't mean you're old, but two hippies from the past talking about this now, 50 years on, because it's very relevant. And why, and I'd be interested to hear what you think in terms of the US, but why we started really developing and training leadership and organizational coaches here. And we do that both online for a global training group, but also face to face. One of the reasons is we saw very early on, about 30 years ago, how important it was for leadership and organizations to begin to consider a very different context for how they lived in that world. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect because it isn't, but I'm just interested, and it's fascinating. You talk about coaching being also, it sounds like a door, it's a portal, isn't it, for psychosynthesis potentially?
It can be, yes. I think it is for a lot of people. And from my own experience and others, a lot of people taking psychosynthesis training aren't even directly orienting towards coaching, but they're massage therapists, they're people in
Yeah,
business,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
some of them are psychologists, but they're leaning into that. And um, you know better than most how important it is in executive coaching, having years of
Incredible.
experience.
Yeah, it's incredibly important, and that's, that's what the research we did here over a long period. It shows that, and it shows what's possible when really powerful, important people, leaders, can actually transform the culture around them. And
Yes,
it's simplistic to say, oh, well, it's just because of a different set of values. No, it's more than that. They hold love. And that's a very powerful thing. By holding love, then they see people differently.
yes,
And leaders that can do that, they can go anywhere. They can do that. And that's amazing.
it is. And it's just one step at a time, moving leaders in that way. And anybody, any company that is bringing in
Mhm.
executive coaches, and those coaches are not just materialistically based, but are
Exactly.
spiritually based, will
Exactly.
actually help the whole company, not only its bottom line, but the
That's right.
quality of existence.
And the culture of people, but also how they interact. That's fascinating what you're saying, because that I see that, and I see that in the coaches we've trained. I see that in their clients. It's really, and it's one of the reasons we've had quite a few. I don't mean huge numbers, but a lot of very interesting US participants in our MA programs, both in psychology, but also the MA in leadership and organizational coaching. And why I'm saying that is these folk really get the need for this context in the US. And these are highly experienced professionals. And I mean, we alter some of our timelines so we can do it slightly more friendly for East Coast times, particularly. And it's also motivated us to create a US a USMA this October. So we're inviting people to that, where they can study either psychology MA or an MA in leadership and organizational coaching. But why it's so critical is that, as you say, it's a portal where they can anchor psychosynthesis. And I know you've been very kind and offered to help us find therapists for that. And it's perfect because that level, I think, from everything I hear, that in the US, we're ready for that now. And it's a pity it isn't
I,
driven by a US group, but I think that'll happen.
well, I certainly hope so, and think that as the psychosynthesis community, people trained or people who are wanting to train, many of those people are also looking for an academic degree. And while we do have a number of programs that have transpersonal psychology or
I
integrative
know.
psychology, there is not a program that has
No.
psychosynthesis psychology.
Well, that's the point, and that's what, and we've been very fortunate in our conversations with people like yourselves, but also AAP, who have been very supportive. And so we look forward. We'll do it. Hopefully the numbers are good this year, but let's see, it'll happen because but no, it's really important
I
because
agree. Yeah.
then we have a platform, don't we? you know, and that platform is people can go from there, and hopefully some of these good folk will go on and create their own programs in the States out of that, which would be fantastic. But
And every time there's an academic program that is more oriented towards love, as you say, or spirituality, it changes the field of academia, maybe only a little bit at a time.
I
Same
know
thing is true in psychology. So we're taking our steps and making an impact on the present and the future.
it's really interesting. I mean, this sounds like name dropping, but it's important. You know who I mean by Rupert Sheldrake.
Mhm.
Rupert Sheldrake and his work in morphogenetic fields. He and his wife Jill Pearce, we've known them for a long time, long time. And they came to dinner the other night. We haven't seen them for about 25 years. And the conversation we had with them was very similar to this in terms of the opportunity and the potential globally for people are beginning to hear the note. It's not just about psychosynthesis, but that note that says there's another way professionally, personally of living our lives. And it's not just about existential crisis, it's not just crisis of meaning. People are resonating to that note. And I was fascinated listening to them talk about that.
That's lovely. And every one of us who ends up being people who write the books, get the word out, all of that, teach another person, each one teach one.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful. it's amazing. And well, it's part of this whole dialogue we're having. And I hope this is the first of a number, because I think we can really start seeing and listening to signals that are out there that our students tell us, pay attention to this, really think about these things. And whatever that constituency looks like, I'd love to do that with you on an ongoing basis.
Well, I hope we will. And I'm just so impressed that as the classic wise old man of psychosynthesis, you are still going.
Well, I don't know about the classic wise, but no, I just love it. I just love the gift that Roberto gave us, actually.
Oh,
And
yes.
I'm so, well, it just touches me when I think of that man and think of that craziness in that year when we were talking, studying with him. But it just so touching. And I'm, I don't know if what yours is, but certainly my takeaway, and I say this to our students, they say, well, what really struck you most? I say the thing that struck my life most was he taught me disidentification. He taught me that practice, and that practice, if I really listen to that practice, and I have done for a long time, it just takes me to myself in a way. And yes, there's stuff in the way and all that stuff, but fundamentally, that's been incredible.
I agree. If and when people ask me what's the most important aspect of psychosynthesis, it is that.
Do you say that? I
I
didn't
do,
know.
yes.
I didn't know. That's wonderful.
And it's so very, very practical. It's just like something to do right now when what I want to do is tell somebody off.
Or
Or
react, and
yeah,
get uptight
yeah,
and all that stuff.
yeah.
It's fantastic. Oh, isn't that a great place to finish with disidentification?
Yes,
But,
yes. And it has been fun to identify with you
thank you.
and our shared vision for psychosynthesis.
Yeah.
And then to step back, disidentify and step back into self-identification where we can each go, oh, yay, this is who I truly
I love
am.
it. I love it. And thank you.
Mwah.